Welcome to Intentionally Disturbing. Today's episode is a little delayed, my bad, because we talk a lot about Sean Combs and Diddy. But what's interesting is that me and Cameron Roberts, this badass attorney, actually guessed how the trial was going to go, and we were spot on. So listen in for our details, but also some extremely disturbing moments that Cameron has endured as one of the most badass attorneys. And trigger warning, it's pretty graphic. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to Intentionally Disturbing. I'm Dr. Leslie, and today I get to speak with Cameron Simone Roberts, one of the most badass attorneys I've ever met. And you should just be writing her name down right now because you will need to hire her when you have any kind of civil lawsuit with her amazing criminal background. But Cameron has an amazing educational background and experiential background, and we are going to go through not just the Sean Combs case, but also some riveting insights on other cases, and probably one of the most disturbing cases I've ever heard of that she shares. And yeah, this isn't for kids because we're talking about rape. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be able to do this, and makes me be able to bring out a white suit. I never touch them anyways because I'm like a child. It's like if I have ketchup 3 days ago, it will be on the suit somehow.
I don't own anything white. I can't.
I know.
Even like my body makeup, I would get my makeup on it.
Like touch your face once. You're like, I swear to God, I didn't even touch my fucking face.
I like it because last time we talked, you were wearing pink, but now I got the pink, so we have like the alternative.
Yeah, I know. I was like, all right, I'm not fucking wearing red or blue after this weekend. I got to go like neutral tones.
I know. Yes. So we are recording today on June 23rd. Is that it? Yeah, June 23rd, after our president bombed Iran. So we are coming off quite a heightened emotional weekend.
We are very charged.
But what I found so interesting was like we go through such intensities with politics and everything, and then we're just jumping into like the trial of Sean Combs is what's probably going to be largely on the news today. Which
exactly.
I'm fascinated.
You go into like state of warfare, and then we're right back to the celebrity.
Yes, which is kind of like my life. But okay, I'm really pumped to talk. I want to talk to you about the Sean Combs case and just about your career in general, but let's introduce you to everyone. So my introduction of you is that you are a completely badass personal injury attorney. Is that, you think that's a little spot on?
I mean, I appreciate that. I'll take it for sure. No, I am a personal injury attorney for sure.
But I think the power with you is that women are starting to take over law more and more, and we are bringing me, not as an attorney but as an expert, I think we bring something so powerful that the old school male presentation can't add to our clients and to the jury, to explaining emotions, everything that has been so nuanced in the Sean Combs trial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I started off as a district attorney, so I did criminal prosecution. And that was one of the best things that I did do because I got into the trials right away. And I was down in middle Georgia and South Georgia area. So I got to hop into a lot of heavier hitting trials very early on, opposed to Atlanta, for where I'm from in the city. And it definitely is. It's totally evolving. And I believe it started evolving, I mean, before I became a lawyer. But when I jumped into it, doing the trials, you could tell women were placed on certain trials that otherwise men previously were placed on, just because they thought a woman could present better an emotional component to it, or something that would add a little bit of reality and clarity to it that a man might not otherwise be able to present.
I think it's so true. And then you've got to think about, and of course you're always thinking about this, but the jury.
Oh, yes. Well, everything we do is with the jury. And, I'll tell you, I know there was one case in particular that comes to mind, and I had just moved to South Georgia. Now, keep in mind, I'm an Atlanta girl, okay? But, my father's from Kentucky. We have a farm up there. So I kind of have a little bit of background in both worlds. But the first case, and I won't say the town for protection reasons, but I went to South Georgia town, and there was a trial, and there was a woman that was older, and her husband and her had divorced. She had money, she was well off, and she had just gotten married to a younger man. Not crazy younger, but younger. Definitely people would see and say he's younger. And tragically, she had a horrible stroke just shortly thereafter, and it paralyzed her. And the only thing she could move was her eyes. Like, she would have to communicate, like, blink one for yes, two for no kind of thing.
Oh my God.
Yes. And then her new husband, it wasn't maybe a month after they got married this happened, and he started raping her. And we found out by her home health nurse, because she was noticing like irritations, rashes, discharge that was not normal down there, basically indicative of irritations. And she wasn't really able to communicate it, like we would be able to communicate like we're doing right now. But she was able to communicate with the eyes, and the at-home healthcare nurse was able to work with her and able to, they had a language they could understand, with it, using the blinking of the eyes to communicate. And, at the end of the trial, I think, honestly, that's disturbing in of itself. But the most
that's
disturbing
extremely
part,
disturbing.
Extremely disturbing.
Okay,
And
I can't wait to hear the end here.
Yes, and you're talking about, this comes back to the jurors. The most disturbing part of it was, they tell you in law school, you need to talk to the jurors afterwards, ask them, like after the trial's over, what do you think? What, how did you feel about this? And it just helps you learn how you present to people, what people want to hear, what interests them, and, it helps you be a better lawyer. And one of the jurors asked me, "Can you rape your wife?" I was like, I was like, you can rape anything that says no or can't say no. Dogs, whatever, all that.
This question came after?
Yeah.
After. So they had already
Needless
decided.
to say, they did not convict him. And I just wonder if that was why.
Oh, my word.
It was,
so
it
now
was
this
probably
guy is
one of the most, it was eye-opening. I was like, what?
Oh my
it's
gosh.
Crazy.
That your average juror doesn't understand what rape is.
Or that, wife isn't property, or that, if she, just because she maybe can't say no in the usual way that we communicate, doesn't mean. He was very well aware of the eye blinking and trying to create this kind of language, and obviously that home health nurse, was talking about irritations and discharge and things like that were indicative of issues. So he should have seen that too, and thought, maybe this hurts her. Do I need to talk to somebody about this? Maybe I should talk to her home health nurse, as this is something that even should be occurring. Who's to say what's going on? But she's paralyzed, so,
Oh my gosh. So what?
Yeah.
When you approached that case, what was your philosophy? What laws came to play? How did you go about it?
So basically, we had to talk about communication and, how you bring in an expert, that being the nurse. A lot of times, just like personal injury, you bring in someone in the medical field that can attest to the injuries. And, the big question was, can she say no? And the home health nurse testified that, they kind of created a form of communication through the eye blinking. Her mouth wasn't, was paralyzed by the stroke as well. It was pretty much like hear down, but she was able to hear and communicate with her eyes by the form of asking yes, no questions, essentially. And also, it was also the approach of, when someone is in this position, wouldn't you ask and look further and go to meetings with the doctors and say, hey, what is appropriate behavior? Is this gonna hurt this person? Is there a way to do something else? Or is there a way is this just off the table now? Questions should have been asked, precautions should have been taken before just going about it. And I think he knew that. I think that's common sense.
Oh, my word. What a
I know.
disgusting sexual offender.
I know. But going back to what you were saying about the jurors, that was the most disturbing part about it is I was like completely shocked by that question. I just had never really thought about that question before because it was so obvious to me. But I guess it goes back to people maybe not so obvious. So the jurors are 100%, who you're relying upon. They do make the case in a lot of ways, essentially.
Which is wild to me because, and I'm curious about how you're trained in law school, but in psychology, with being a forensic expert, I am told to explain everything at the third grade reading level because your average juror will often lie with a third grade reading level. And to me, that is incredibly disheartening. But you have to, right? You have to talk to them at the lowest common denominator, or everything's going to go over their heads.
Well, definitely. And you want to definitely, because you never know their backgrounds. And they do send out affidavits and things like that beforehand that they're supposed to tell about, where they came from, if they're married, things, what grade level they graduated or what degree they may have, if any, things like that. And everybody's going to be across the board. You're going to have people that are doctors and you're going to have people that graduated high school and are mechanics and make more money than doctors. It's just you have a little bit of everything. And I think the one of the hardest parts is we have to describe the law, but then we have to describe it to them how you think through it and how it applies. So it's almost like you have to take your law school education and somehow in a clear, concise, very quick way, explain it to them in a way you think they'll understand. I like to use examples, just kind of hypotheticals and things like that. And that's why it's good to do the closings, is really where you kind of explain the law to them. In the opening, you kind of give them the story. Hey, this is what we expect you to see today. This is what we expect to be presented today. And kind of just give them like a summary preview so they kind of, as the evidence and as the testimony proceeds, they know kind of what to look for, what to pick up on, and they have, their journals so they can write notes on, hey, about this and things like that. And at the end in your closing is when you explain the law and then you explain how it applies. So then you can take the example of, oh, hey, his testimony was this. This is the law for this, and this is how we think it should be applied. So it's easier at the end once you give them a summary of what the case is about. They see the evidence and testimony, and at the end you can explain the law in the closing and explain, like using the example they just saw of how they should interpret it and how we are presenting the case.
How do you feel about in the Sean Combs trial that the jury is not sequestered, that they're going home and they're probably on social media? I mean, we're human beings, right? We're going to cheat. What do you think about that?
I don't know how it's possible. I don't know how it could be done. I just don't know how it could be done. I mean, we sequester jurors in a very small towns where half of the older people probably don't even have internet or Wi-Fi at their house. And, but they may go to the local social hall and chit chat and things like that. But, it's human nature to talk. And I just think it's difficult in general to be a celebrity and have a true, pure criminal proceeding, in the positive way and in the negative way, however you look at it. Because when you're a celebrity, for example, if you get a DUI and maybe it's completely unrelated to what matters at hand, and if you were a normal criminal that everybody doesn't know about you, or say criminal, but a normal person that committed a crime allegedly that nobody nobody's heard about your past and nobody's been following you with the camera for 20 years. They may not know about the DUI, and so your lawyers would get it suppressed in a pretrial motion because it may not be related to the crime at hand. Whereas a celebrity, it's all over the news, and it's you can't suppress it. Everybody knows about it anyways. But sequestering the jury is really the only way that we have to try to protect them from talking, protect them from social media. And the way that we are these days, in the day of social media and the day of technology and this IT boom, like we're in like the IT boom as if the Industrial Revolution, that's our boom. and it's everywhere. And now with AI, I mean, I was just looking for stuff over the weekend, and it's like, fake planes here. You have to research everything and be like, where did this come from? And who knows if the juror is going to do that? Who knows if they're just going to look at something and take it for gospel as it stands and not do any, research. They're not supposed to be doing that at all. But, it's I don't understand how you can have a fair trial without sequestering a jury. Now, even if you sequester them, there's still chances, there's still issues, they still come up all the time, but at least there's some layer of protection. Without sequestering them at all, I mean, I just don't understand how this could be a fair trial at all.
It's pretty wild. I mean, as we followed along, basically the jury has had to watch violent pornography for 28 days. I don't know what day we're on. That's like pretty much been the majority of what they have been succumbed to, or what they have succumbed to. I feel really bad for them. I mean, I do hear that they are gasping. Some people look physically sick watching these videos. And then these videos are probably, cut and edited in a way that it's really just those hard-hitting moments for them to see.
Yeah, I'm sure, because they have to limit it. I mean, think of how many years they're talking about here, and how many people. I mean, we're talking like years and years of camera footage and recordings and things they could use. So it's definitely probably limited to the most, the highest concentrated something that the state feels they would prove, what the allegations they've set forth. I'll tell you one example that I think is difficult to watch over and over and over again, these things, is, we had a case, and the facts of it really aren't that interesting. I mean, it's horrible. The guy beat his wife and she died, beat her to death, essentially. But as a DA, if you present a case, you have to go see the autopsy. And the reason being is that you're supposed to, when you have the doctor that does the autopsy on the stand, you've actually seen it yourself, so you can explain it better. You've seen the process, and it's just not so foreign to you. You want to be able to get out the information that's needed from this person to prove the elements that is required of that, that allegation. And so this lady died by blunt force trauma and to the head, and in an autopsy, I don't know if you're familiar, but when they will literally peel your skin. I'm doing a motion here for those listening and not seeing, but they do like a slit below your face,
under the chin, across like the upper neck. Yeah.
Yes, and they literally roll your face off your face. It's horrible to watch, and your face is still like a face, but like skinless. It's horrible to watch. But the family of the deceased woman wanted to stay, and I get it. They feel like, oh, we're supporting mom and everything, but from the DA's office, our victim advocates advised them not to, and they were like, listen, you can come right back in after this part, but this part is not something you want to see. This is something you don't need to see. And they wanted to stay, and the girl, one of the daughters ran out and threw up, and I don't blame her.
I can imagine.
I can't even imagine. And I get why they wanted to stay, but that's going back to the P. Diddy. It's like, when you're watching things over and over and over and over again, it's just to the
horrifying
point where who can even think clearly, because you're just you feel like you need therapy after it,
Yes.
You're like, I need someone to help me process this.
I think they should be given therapy.
Yes.
The government should pay for it, because I imagine what you're seeing is urinating in her mouth. You're seeing gangbanging. You're seeing these women vomit and then being forced back into sex in these 75-degree rooms with 1,800 bottles of baby oil. You're seeing probably blood, I would imagine. How do you not bleed after so much rape?
Oh, 100%.
And then you're seeing Sean Combs, dressed as a Muslim in the corner jacking off?
I know. And you don't know where these people's backgrounds are. So, if let's say someone was a cop, which I'm sure he would have been he would have been struck from the jury 100%, I'm sure. But, someone like, per se, a cop, they would otherwise have probably seen that before. So it wouldn't be so disturbing to them. Of course it's disturbing, but it wouldn't be shocking, I guess is a better word for that. And in this situation, I'm imagining like a teacher or, somebody that maybe hasn't otherwise been exposed to this in their life. And I know you coming from your background and me coming from the DA background and having seen these autopsies, it's still horrific, but it's not as surprising. So I just can't imagine the level of shock that these jurors are experiencing right now.
But from your legal perspective, how do you think the case is going? How do you think this is a very, very highly sexual case, but these are very, governmental accusations, I guess you could say.
Right.
How do you think
right.
they're linking, this chronic masturbator to RICO, to sexual trafficking?
Masturbator. Yes, that's a good label.
Because they haven't.
Can you label ex-boyfriends that way?
It falls under paraphilias. It is a fetish. No. Well, actually, I guess if you're on a lot of ecstasy, you're going to be a chronic masturbator, too.
I mean, everybody's been in college, right?
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. But, how do you think it's going? I mean, it feels like we're on the last week. The defense said they may only need a couple more days. They're not going to call any witnesses. Sean Combs is not going to take the stand. So they're just going to close up shop, lose, and appeal?
Exactly. I feel like they're rushing it. I mean, think about it. We just came from the YSL, and look how long that took. My gosh. I mean, that took forever. And it was just I felt like we all were just relentlessly pulled into it, especially in Atlanta. It took over all of the court system. And if you had a hearing somewhere else, you had to go through this building to go to that building to go to this building because there were people outside for this. And it was crazy for a year plus. And so that was so drawn out, and the amount of details and duration that all of these details and all of these incidents and victims and alleged crimes have been occurring. I just don't understand how you can put that into a true trial. So honestly, at this point, without sequestering them and pushing all the evidence quickly, I just don't understand how that they would actually prove the case, unless they're just going for a straight appeal. They're let's just get it over with. We feel like we've already tripped up on a couple of things. Let's just, get this part over with, apply for a mistrial, or go ahead for an appeal and try to hit it a different light. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's let's not waste the time because, just like we were mentioning the YSL, after, 9 months, everyone, even, the jurors aside, but everyone else was all right, we're sick of hearing about this trial. Just get to the end already, You get jaded after a while.
Can you give us a synopsis of YSL for listeners?
You mean just a summary of the case? Well, I mean,
summary, not synopsis.
It's just based. I don't want to go into too much detail with it because I know there is an appeal going and all things like that. But I mean, basically, it was game racketeering, and there's violence that occurred with the gang, alleged gang associated with him. There was some evidence, that was brought forth, of course, but there were incriminated evidence against him. But then there was, some witnesses that kind of changed their testimony. And just to kind of explain why we were bringing this up is describing how it went so long. It was every, couple of weeks there was an alleged mistrial or alleged this, and, they would put forth a motion. And I don't blame them. That there was a lot of things that went down in that case that they should have, brought up that and had an actual conversation. A motion hearing is what we call it. Is when it's not in front of the jury and it's before the judge, and it's just where you pretty much argue legal theory and case law and things like that in order to proceed with whether something should be brought up or not. What we would say is if it's more prejudicial than probative, meaning that if the evidence is more likely to incriminate the defendant rather than the evidence is used to, maybe show innocence or something else that they're trying to prove as part of their legal theory or legal strategy. And with that one, they had a lot of motions brought up. They were talking about ex parte, meaning the, conversations that weren't supposed to be had with the judge alone with just one of the lawyers or one of the parties. Everybody's supposed to be, in the same room so that everybody has the opportunity to defend themselves or bring up, their side of the argument, et cetera. And so, it just went on for forever. And that case, how that case proceeded, it's every time there was something For example, you brought up the sequestering. There was some type of little, bump in the road or something that they thought would otherwise hurt the case. They brought it up by a motion hearing with a judge, or, they would pause the trial, jurors go home, and they would have this conversation to try to decide what was better, what was more in tune with our laws here and the laws that applied to the case, so that they didn't, unduly prejudice the jury to the information, and that the information was not meant to just make him look bad, but had some sort of legal value, I guess. And so that's very different than how this trial is going. This trial is like speed, full speed ahead. So one has to wonder if there's a plan. I'm sure there is a game plan, as to appeal it from either end, whatever ends up happening. That may be what they're trying to do, is just get over with this portion of it so they can then move to the next step. Maybe they feel like it's too far gone in this way and just get it over with, so then it opens up the door to appeal it. Or maybe they think there's enough evidence on one side that they don't really care about what we would call the hiccups, or something that might otherwise unduly prejudice, the defendant. But it is rather quick considering the evidence. So it is interesting to see what the plan is here.
It is quick, and it is very split. It's very split if you look at social media. And so we've got a group of social media people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And then we have a group that actually does, right?
Right.
So the professionals, the lawyers, the experts that are speaking about this, who actually understand the nuances of RICO, even Tony Busby, who has been doing posts about this, they're still very split in if this has really been a good enough display of the evidence, if they've really done this well enough.
And that's another thing, as it could be, that's the problem, is if the state has not presented it in a fair way, and let's say that they feel like that, the evidence hasn't been presented on behalf of the state as well as it could be, and let's say they find, that they don't want to convict him, then you're there's not much really you can do after that. Now, if he is convicted and they feel like the state, and they appeal it, then, the state has an opportunity to present additional evidence, depending upon if it's a mistrial and they restart as if it's a new trial, or if it's just an appeal, or, whatever ends up turning up. But it's hard. If the state doesn't present enough evidence, then, it's kind of hard to go back on that,
Yeah. And everyone you hear everyone say the feds never lose. But they could quite possibly lose because of the rush nature of it.
Oh, definitely. And that may be a strategy. They may be trying to rush it because maybe they feel like some things were decided earlier on how the trial was to proceed. Maybe there was motions heard that suppressed certain evidence they didn't agree with. And they thought, well, if we can't do this and we can't do that, let's just get to the end of it. And then, or, try to apply for a mistrial if we see something, appear that would otherwise arise for a mistrial to be alleged, or wait till we get to an appeal and handle it that way. Sometimes they don't want to jade the jury and the general public too much if they feel like it's already been, harmed so much from the beginning that it's not going to go how they want it to go.
Right. I mean, but you bring up such a good point that there are so many secret legal strategies that have played out before, playing out now, and years into the future, that people do not know, and they could not possibly know or comprehend unless they are a lawyer or on the legal team.
That's true. That's very true. So, I think we'll find out. Of course, we find out at the end. But, depending by the rush state of this, I just can't imagine there's not a plan, like part 2 plan. Because with the amount of evidence that's gone into this, and the amount of time and victims, and this has been going on for years, allegedly. So this has been going on for years. So the amount of evidence that they have is exponential with the amount of time that has been put into this. So I just can't imagine that there's not a part 2 that's already in the thoughts and minds of the lawyers that's going to happen. There's got to be something that they haven't announced they moved into yet.
Right. I think that's such an important part for the world to hear. Just don't hang your hat on what this little, I don't know, 7 weeks will be.
Yeah. And that might be another reason with the sequestering. Maybe they think, hey, before the trial started, there was so much, dirty laundry, it aired, and so many allegations and things said that they don't think that it could be any worse. So maybe they think, hey, maybe there's a chance it could be, things are said to better him. Or maybe he said, I don't care if they're sequestered. Everything I have is already out there for the world to hear. So forget about it. Let's just move forward. There could be so many thoughts to that, but there is so many ways that you can do a mistrial and appeal. And there's if a judge, it could even happen before the trial even started. Like if there was a motion that the judge granted where there was evidence suppressed that they felt like it was not lawfully supposed to be suppressed, then the whole trial, they would have to go forward with the whole trial and then at the end appeal it based on that pretrial motion. So it could be something as small as that. Literally, it's insane.
God, I
you
hope
You
not.
have to
I
go
hope
through
not.
that whole step and you have to reset. So it's kind of wild how that is. But
I cannot hear about him jacking off anymore. Like it's
my God, I know.
it's too much. I've never seen somebody like, we see these cases of extreme sexual behavior, right? I mean, I've worked cannibalism, necrophilia.
Yeah.
But never has it been on such a public platform. I think people are saying to themselves, wow, I didn't know somebody could be that sexually disturbed.
And to be around for so long and have such a powerful influence for so long over so many people, involved in so many other very, very famous and very successful other celebrities and musicians, especially their careers. Everything he's had to do with it. Politicians. I mean, everything. He has been around for so long and involved in so much that it just seems like this intertwined web that keeps growing and growing without end. I mean, where is the end?
Well, and it does feel like they have capped it in this trial. They have had the opportunity to bring in very powerful, well-known people, and they've chosen not to. Now, again, they've fucked up because names have gotten out there. Everybody seems to think that trial is this perfect, almost like spaceship scene, when really, like, if you can explain, like I've had to go home. I couldn't testify until the next day because a lawyer dropped their binder and they needed the whole day to reorganize their binder of papers.
Oh yeah.
But it's not the government trial, all of these big things, they're not beautifully put together. They are, I don't know how you describe it. Like, they are difficult to organize and they are simple at times too.
Oh, definitely. And I think because especially with most people's knowledge of trials is from the big trials. I mean, I'm a 90s kid, so we were all like O.J. Simpson. I mean, the whole world, every day of it. And, all these different celebrity trials. So those ones are broadcasted. And I feel like that's most people's experience of trials is watching them broadcasted and seeing, it's a celebrity version, that's able to be on some major network that everyone can follow it all the way through. And so it almost is it breeds this image that it's a movie, I guess, in a way, because that's how they see it. They're not sitting in the courtroom; they're watching it from their TV. So you feel like it's coming in as if a movie, and then you of course watch movies about it and things like that. But I would urge people, because most courtrooms are open. Most of the trials, unless it's sealed for some particular reason, is otherwise open. And if people are truly interested, I would highly suggest going and just sitting in a courtroom during a normal, run-of-the-mill trial that's happening in their county and just see how it actually goes. Because once you're there, you can truly feel what it's like and see what it's like, because they might, we're going to commercial, but that's when they show the transition, and that's when the lawyer's flipping through the papers and trying to organize exhibits and things like that, and that's when the real trial is happening. And it's not, it could be very simple and it can be very complex, but at the end of the day, these are people that went to the same, undergrad law school path, or just, undergrad to taking the bar exam back in California. And, the normal path that everybody else that does this kind of work has been on. And, they might have just picked up a popular defendant or popular client that got them this attention, this media attention, but that doesn't necessarily change the way they practice, or, gives them this all of a sudden celebrity glow, and they just, morph into this different person. I mean, they're still a lawyer and they still have to abide by everything. And it's very, the evidence code and how we can present evidence and testimony is laid out very specific. And then, of course, where there's room for interpretation, that's when you get into case law and you find things that judges have already ordered and granted that things are able to be brought out in that area. And then, that gives you the precedent to be able to then follow suit and bring that out. And then sometimes you just try some completely new evidence and see how it happes, and you're creating the case law. So, and it may not work for you, but the people behind you, it may work for them. But it's kind of crazy how it all comes about. But they, with the trial thing, it's honestly, it's a lot more simple and a lot more normal than a lot of people think it is. And, it's particular how you have to present it and put it together, but lawyers are just people, I mean, we prepare for our legal theories, and trials are very live. You know what I mean? So unlike a movie where you can say, cut, let's go back and do it again, or oops, I said this way and I didn't mean to say that. If they bring out in pretrial motions that certain evidence can't come out, and then maybe you talk to your witness and, we're not going to go into this, and then they bring it up, which happens, they don't always listen to you, then, mistrial, and so it's very particular going through all the testimony and evidence, and it has to be in accordance with the evidence code and all of the pretrial motions that everybody agreed on. Hey, this is what can be presented, this is what can't, and you'll never know what witnesses sometimes are going to say. I mean, I've had witnesses on the stand that, they just literally, they're just normal and normal in conversation, meet with the whole legal team, fine. They get on the stand and they just freeze. Nothing. I mean, crickets. And you're like, and then, you're like, do we need a break here?
Yeah.
So you never know what's going to happen. And then a lawyer with the cross-examination, I mean, that's not your witness. You don't really know what they're going to say. So they might fire back and say something, and you just have to fly by the seat of your pants. So it's a very very normal John Smith, Jane Doe, very, girl next door kind of situation. And
yeah.
I would urge people, if they are interested in that, or if they do ever, if they're ever picked for a jury, to go see a trial in a courtroom first so that they can see how it actually goes down in real life.
And do you mean it would be easy to go to mental health court? It would be easy to go to superior court. It would be really cool. It's really cool to go to federal buildings.
Right.
Just because you have that higher level, it's a higher bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's prettier. The cafeterias are better.
Better food for sure.
But there's a higher level of respect for the building and the environment that you're in.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and that's the thing is some of the state courtrooms, they might be, especially in Georgia, in some of the smaller towns, they're just smaller and almost look like got the church feel to it and the pews, and it's not as scary. But sometimes you walk into a federal building and it's very, formal, and everything is just so, and it makes you nervous, it makes you kind of okay, well, I have to sit this way and do this, and you're thinking about that maybe and not thinking so much about what's happening in the trial. That's another thing is, being able to keep their interest and focus on what you're presenting so that we're humans, we get distracted, I mean, we can't sit there and absorb everything for 12 hours straight. We have to have a mental, reset.
When I testified in federal court in Los Angeles, I was like, wow, this is kind of the respectable, fancy side of it. Coming out of dependency and family court, I was like, wow,
yeah,
this is really nice. Everyone's wearing Todd's loafers. I can get used to this.
I know. There's definitely a different vibe depending on where it's at, for sure. For sure.
My blazer, I was like, okay, we're not going to be wearing Zara. We're wearing Smythe today. I really...
Yeah. And you'll see people come in, and they're in their suit and blazer, and some people come in and they're just, like they went to Sunday school. So it's a totally different vibe depending upon where you're at. And I think that affects the trial too. If they feel comfortable, if the jurors feel comfortable where they're at so that they can properly focus, or do they feel like they're sitting here in this rigid atmosphere and everybody's looking at them and they're more nervous about the perception of them than understanding and focused on what is actually happening, what's being presented in front of them. You mentioned divorce earlier, family court. Speaking of disturbing, I think, honestly, that might, I've had divorces that are more disturbing than some criminal cases. So
does that fall under your most,
law.
Is that your most disturbing experience in divorce court rather than blinking and rape?
I would say, no, that
we can't laugh at it, but it's just the insanity of
I know. It is. That's what it is. It's not funny, but it's almost like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're in the Twilight Zone or, just went through the looking glass. You're like, huh? But, it takes you back a minute. You're like, wait a minute, what? But I don't know. I think as a whole, divorces are probably more disturbing than criminal. I swear to God they are, because most divorces are criminal. I will say there is for sure a criminal component if you get down to the nitty gritty of it. But no, I think if it's going to be the most disturbing, I still would stick with criminal, because those just keep going and going and going. And there's probably a divorce attached to some of those criminal too. Goes both ways.
Oh, definitely. Oops, commercial time. Okay, the ethical question. I'm really curious about your answer.
Yes.
And the ethical question and
yes,
the smearing of, clients, like lawyers talking about clients openly, or the other side.
And that really shouldn't happen. I mean, it depends. When you have a celebrity, though, there is information about them that's already public knowledge. So if it's public knowledge, then it can be brought out. That's essentially kind of like the rule to it. But if it's something that is otherwise protected, that, hasn't been released, or otherwise, you got from a witness information or evidence that maybe your client had that would not otherwise have been out in the public, then you can certainly protect that and you don't have to talk about certain things about that. But that's the problem with celebrities trials is, all their dirty laundry, like we were talking about earlier, is aired. So, if it's public knowledge, it's public knowledge, Now, I don't think it's right to really talk about it. You know what I mean? But I'm extra cautious. We do personal injury, and I kind of I definitely apply, I guess, my ways of when I was doing criminal law to personal injury, and I do that across the board because I want to protect the client in the trial as much as possible, because I don't like doing trials again. I want to be one and done with them. So I try to make sure that I am, abiding by everything. If something is said to somebody and, something transpires from it, maybe it wasn't that bad of an act itself, but, kind of domino affected, turned into something else, then they could come back and say, oh, a mistrial appeal, this, that, and the other. So I want to do the best for my client. I want to be straight and narrow across the board and, protect the case and as much as I can, because I don't want to put them through that again, mainly, or myself, really. Neither one of us want to go through it again. So, we try to protect the evidence as best as possible so that it's not, the jury hears it. There's no allegations of, a conflict here or mistrial here. And you can just present the evidence and be done with it. That protects it for your client as well, too. Like with personal injury right now, we've just gone through tort reform in Georgia. And, some of the things they talked about is bifurcation of trial, allowing trials to be split, where pretty much the plaintiff which would be, the victim in a criminal case, would be on the stand for two parts of the trial to talk about the same facts, essentially, but with different parts of it. And there's, people are mad about that because it's like, why put them through it again? Just ask what needs to be asked and be done with it, We don't want to further victimize this person from what they've already been through. So it's kind of one of those situations. I like to keep it as protected as possible because I like to protect the client and I don't want them to have to go through this again. So I try not to deal with, I mean, some people like to use the smear campaign tactic to maybe they, especially a celebrity, they can influence the public opinion. And, then the public works its magic and kind of tends to influence the jury, especially if they're not sequestered. So,
Yeah.
but for me, I like to go with a straight and narrow. I like to do it the right way. I like to protect the information. I want to present it to the jury in the most fair way so that a fair trial is heard and that my client doesn't have to do this again.
Which is so lovely. And I so wish more lawyers would be like that. As a psychologist, it pains me. Like, as I've been covering the Sean Combs case, I mean, there was one pretty brutal day where I think it was Cassie, they really ripped her up in Cross. And I made a video that night and I said a few things like, Cassie should be offered breaks. Her legal team, or at least the government, because I know they don't really have legal teams with them per se in this case, but somebody should be giving her breaks. She should have support in the room. She should feel the confidence to ask for a break. You're not in prison. You can get down off the stand, right? And so I made this video, and then the next day, I thought it was quite funny. They did all of what I suggested.
Nice. Good. I'm glad. I wish they had psychologists that talk to, everybody as a pretrial, exercise. Like, hey, everybody needs to know this, as a witness, these are your rights. You can do this. You can do this. And like, as I prep my client for depositions, we do a lot of depositions with personal injury law. And as I prep them for that, I tell my client all the time, if you need a break, if they just went through back surgery and they're hurting, I said, it's okay. You can say, I need to stand up. I need to walk around for a minute. I need to use the restroom. I need to just breathe because I got hounded with questions and now I can't even think clearly. And that also protects the testimony and keeps it authentic and real. And it's not just an emotional reaction to, being waterboarded for 4 hours. And then they're like, whatever you want me to say, I'll say whatever you want. Get me out of this room, because that happens. The pressure builds up and people are people. And if they're not used to being in this kind of environment, they need to have the breaks. They have to know that they can, take a breather, that they can walk around, they can use the restroom, things like that. I think it protects the testimony. It keeps the trial authentic because they're responding, not from being harassed and being, feeling like they've just been absolutely interrogated for, 4 hours. They're answering truthfully and not just out of emotional response to that situation.
Those are cases where I love to come on as a consultant and just help support the individuals as they go through it. Or if
they're supposed to have victim advocates. Victim advocates are supposed to kind of serve in that role.
Right. And they do, right? Some firms do, but they have to pay them.
This is true. Now, the state definitely does, but, how much attention they're getting depends on the victim advocates, definitely. Like, I know when I was a DA, our victim advocate office was great. So, they worked with us regularly on things and, they have their own standards they're held to, that they have to, make the victim aware of their rights in certain ways and, things like we just talked about, but a lot of times they don't. I mean, I can't even tell you how many cases I've had where the victim advocate hasn't even communicated with them,
It's wild. It's wild to me. And with the Sean Combs case, it's just next level torture on a public platform. And I don't feel like a lot of these women have been protected.
And they're probably scared. That's one of the biggest things you have with witnesses and with victims is they're scared to say anything because, what's going to happen afterwards, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to be, publicly shamed and trolled for the rest of their life? We live in the era of social media and internet and AI and, they can take a phrase or a misspeaking of words and change it into God knows what. So, I don't blame them. They're terrified. And especially when it's, broadcasted.
And I say women, but men too. I mean, a lot of these escorts, were given immunity, but what does that really mean when it comes to just your day-to-day life?
Yeah, you might have immunity from using something against you or whatever, but immunity from what? You mean, am I going to have like Secret Service protection follow me around? Are you offering me, witness protection program? Like, what is, define that? Because immunity is basically like, we're not going to use it against you to go after this or, otherwise, implicate you in a crime. Okay, thanks. I'm a victim, but like, how are you going to protect me? And I think that goes through a lot of people's minds where they withhold maybe all of the testimony or all of the stories because they think, okay, if I say this, what's going to happen next? And unless someone is, unless they've been provided and explained to what all protections are there for them, we're all human,
we're all human.
Future.
To think that people are actually testifying to the whole truth and nothing but the truth is flabbergasting to me.
And at the end of the day, law, everything is subjective because what is your truth? Your truth may be different than my truth. And, what I perceive as wrong may be different than what you perceive as wrong. So, it really is up to the lawyer in that situation to ask the right questions and take the last response heard and, find a way to try to connect with them so that they're, answering things and getting the story out there. They don't necessarily know how to say it or what to say or what they're looking for. I'm sure they've been prepped and everything, but what is the truth? It's all perspective. It's subjective in a lot of ways.
Right. And then it's just handed to a jury. It's just such a wild field you're in.
I know. And it is literally the most original, antiquated, back to our founding fathers. You know what I mean? Like it has been the tried and true jury of your peers, but I mean, what else is there? We're all open for ideas. You can do a bench hearing, then you have this one judge, and that's essentially one juror. So it's trying to find another alternative that would be otherwise fair to try to get, try to get the story out and protect the victim and, protect the defendant until he's, proven guilty if he is and on from there. But we're all open for ideas. Jury of the peers has been around for a while.
Okay, I got some questions for you. Okay. For our intentionally disturbing lightning round. If you could commit a crime and get away with it, what would you do?
Depends on the day, for sure. I mean, honestly, I'm going to be boring on this one because I just got back from my honeymoon with my husband. He's Colombian. And we just got back from Europe and we ate and drank, all the good food, the jamon, the this, the that. I'm like, I just want to bring food home. I just want to bring this home. I want to bring jamon. I want to bring the gazpacho. And I'm like, why is this a crime? I get it. I mean, I truly get it. That they're protecting, exposure to diseases and viruses and things like that because God knows what's in it. But I'm like, can I just have my very, very salted jamon that probably is so salted there's nothing in it? It's boring, but I swear it's every time. I never forget my parents. My dad's a pilot, and we used to go to the Bahamas when we were little, and they threw out my hermit crabs in customs. I was so mad. I'd already bought them shells that looked like little princesses and stuff. It was a whole thing.
I mean, I can understand. When I go to Mexico a lot, monthly. When I go through and they take things away that I need for my kids on the plane, they take her slime, and I'm like, you know how important slime is to a child on a flight?
Oh, yes. Yes. You're like, I need things that keep her busy. Are you going to keep her busy?
Yes.
Because you just took away my busy thing.
Unless you're going to put a Target or a Walmart in the airport with reasonable prices, I think we need to change these laws.
Yes. I mean, I get the whole purpose of going through the protection and TSA's purposes, but give us something on the other side. I don't need a Pandora, okay? There's something else that could be there.
Yeah, I mean, you can test her slime for uranium. That is fine, but let us just bring it through.
Yes, all the way.
Okay, next question. If you had to die by death penalty, how would you want to go?
It's crazy because Georgia still does it. Well, Georgia still has the death penalty, and there are options to pick. And I'd heard this recently because the attorney general in Georgia has to be present for it. It's not like they happen here every day. Everyone's like, oh, Georgia, but they do happen. Yes, whatever your opinion of that is. But when the attorney general has to be present, and this guy did it recently, and it was his choice, and I was like, you know what? That's kind of baller. I kind of would do that too. And it was death by firing squad. I was like, if you're gonna go down, go down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to go down with my boots on, Doc Holliday style.
Can you, to somebody who's never witnessed death by firing squad, like, what's the setup? Is it like Hannibal Lecter going down the hallway and everybody's Handmaid's Tale line? Like, what does it look like?
No, it is literally like officers that are like several of them out there, and it's like 3, 2, 1, go, and the guy's over here, and just bam, 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 just like you would think, just like it's been for years, decades, thousands, hundreds of years.
Is it like, where do the shots primarily land? Are they core shots? Are they in the head? Are they like, is there like one distinct kill shot?
Well, I mean, it's usually here. I mean, any target, I say here, I'm on the radio too. So chest, chest and head definitely are kill shots. And I think that's probably primarily where they're aiming, hitting major organs, making it happen quick, not so that it's like a painful suffering thing. I'm sure that they've been advised to try to hit, the major organs, the major things that would be as quick and painless as possible. But I thought, what? That is antiquated, but at the same time, I mean, you hear all these horror stories of like not getting enough medicine if they, do it intravenously, and, maybe giving too much and their body reacts in a certain way, and it's like a slower, more painful death. I'm like, just shoot me. I guess just get it over with.
I love it. I wish we could add one like a slow heroin drip or something.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what about like some wine and let's make this a full experience here.
Yeah. Okay, but I guess they don't deserve it, right? Okay.
They get their last meal now. So
that's so lovely for these mass murderers and serial killers.
It's true. That's true. They're like, I don't know. I've been eating, stew for the past 10 years. So.
Oh, I used to eat in the inmate cafe at the Los Angeles County Jail.
Oh, how's that?
Because a lot of inmates are chefs, right, and cooks, and they all come from different trades.
All walks
but
of
I
life.
definitely would stay away from the foods that I couldn't tell if there were bodily fluids in them. Like, I would definitely go for like a salad without dressing.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Like, avoid the liquid. So, like, if it's meatloaf, 0 gravy. Gravy is not happening.
Yes. And just never be on anyone's bad side when you're on the inside.
No.
Okay, one question I have to ask. If you could change a law, what would it be and why?
Ooh, there's so many. Honestly, I'm going to have to go to tort reform. We just in Georgia went through that, and I do personal injury. So that's something that's, been hot in the topic and on our local government. And what that basically means is there's just several components and layers to it. But one part in particular, without going into this excruciatingly lengthy detail about it, would be something we call the collateral source rule. And basically that means it protects the injured party, the one that, was the victim to the wreck, that wasn't their fault, if they have health insurance, from presenting that health insurance to the jury. Because now that we've gone through tort reform and the governor's ruled the way he has, and it's gone through the House, Senate, and, he's signed it into effect, that basically, if you have health insurance and you've been in a wreck and it's not your fault, then you can present to the jury what the health insurance covered on the bills. And as a personal injury lawyer, we use the medical bills as a way of evaluating putting a number on an injury, So there's different ways to evaluate it. And the foundational component is the medical bills, is what we call like the special damages. So, your medical bills is a way that the doctors can quantify your injuries to put a number on it, and then you add in pain and suffering and lost wages and other things on it. But now, as of a few months ago, if you have health insurance, then you can present that. Then the defense can require you to then present that to the jury, and it's almost in effect penalizing you for having health insurance, because if you don't have health insurance, then you'll get the full value, you're more likely to get the full value of your injuries. It sucks for the little man, it really does. We try to bring out everything we can to protect them and make sure that however they were affected by the case, or however they were affected by the incident that, gave cause for the injury, that they are compensated to the best of our ability. But that is definitely one law I would change. It's not fair.
Yeah. I would change it too. I mean, whenever I do my evaluations and assessments for the mental health needs going forward, I never use health insurance because it's completely unstable. Like Kaiser limits you. They're constantly switching therapists. They're bringing in newbies who aren't good enough to take care of very, very severe conditions. There is no consistency in the longevity of mental health insurance for mental health care. And there's so many articles. I will promote cash pay for lawsuits because we need to cover someone no matter what happens with this climate and insurance.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that about the mental health. I mean, that's a huge thing that is also considered an injury. I mean, you have the physical injury, but there is mental health. And I have several cases that require that. And especially with cases with children, they are a lot more traumatized by certain things that happen to them than an adult may be in a lot of ways. And, maybe children recover a lot easier from injuries because there's like rubber, they have the good, metabolism and the good energy, and they're stronger and everything. And they're, in a lot of ways, but the mental health is affected. And so, I always, if there's a child or even, anybody that's gone through an injury and they have a mental health component to it, I always try to get that out with them and try to understand that from the beginning, because like you said, it's mental health injury can be stronger than a physical injury, and it can last a lifetime.
Oops, commercial time. Right. I have a case right now of an individual who was severely abused by a religious institution, by a leader. And what happened was he dropped out of school because of the abuse. Well, he has a very, very severe learning disorders and dyslexia. So he went 50, 60 years of his life without knowing his actual condition. And that was caused because of that abuse he endured when he was a small child. So in my mind, yes, they are accountable for ruining this guy's life and any potential gain he could have had from it because no one ever
100%.
Diagnosed him properly. This case I'm on right now, it just makes me livid. But, Catholic priest, can you just not fuck your altar boys? Like, just keep it in your pants, okay? I can't.
It's like, how long has this been happening? I swear.
Forever.
I know. Well, I mean, a lot, and it's sad because a lot of religious institutions, it's like they use it as a means to control the masses, and it's like they use exactly what it's like they take advantage of people coming in a very vulnerable state, and I appreciate and tolerate and respect every religion, but when you come in there in a vulnerable state, it's the people that are in these certain organizations that are taking advantage. They're taking their humanism and whatever is going on in their head and issues they have, and they're projecting it on this more vulnerable person. And when people come to their church or their synagogue or whatever religion they practice, if they practice one at all, then they're coming in a vulnerable state. They're looking for help, and it's just like easy target.
Yes, 100%. And then you think about the opposite of people, pedophiles, people who are disordered, seek out positions of authority in order to have access to victims.
Oh, they do.
And
I mean, 100%.
It makes me mad. Yeah.
And they're very good at it. I mean, when you have somebody that is like a true sociopath or a true narcissist, not in the sense that we throw the word around now. Now, yes, we all have had narcissistic boyfriends. I think we all can Hail Mary to that. But I mean, a true sociopath, or someone like that, they're good at are at tricking their own selves and becoming this way, and being able to rise to certain thresholds where they have a certain power. Yeah. And they're so good at it, they don't even know half the time, you know? And that's what's scary, you know, because with other people, as other humans, when you're communicating with them or having some kind of engagement with them, you know, if someone lies to you, a lot of people can kind of tell, they can pick up on just like a feeling, an intuition, you know, even if they don't, you know, some people maybe blink twice or whatever, you know, they might have little tics, but you can kind of pick up on it. But a true sociopath, you have no idea because they don't know, you know, it's like they believe their own creation.
Yes. Oh, I wish I could diagnose public figures.
I know. You should, girl. I'll come on to that one.
Okay, one more question. Can you tell me a secret that nobody else knows?
Oh, Lord. Let's see. I feel like I'm a pretty open book. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't, you know, I feel like with secrets with me, I mean, I don't talk about, as a lawyer, I don't talk about a lot of stuff because it's like, you know, but I'm trying to think of a special, like something. Okay, I'll tell you this. It's not necessarily a secret, but it's something. It's kind of like a fun fact, and I'm going to go into it. So my dad is, not a lot of people know this because, you know, then we start going into everything. My dad is 96, or will be 96 in August. I'm the last of 7 that we know of, we're pretty sure. 7 legitimate, for sure. And children, different wives now. And he has like a wall of wives down his staircase. And it's like all the different wives that, you know, when you go down, you're like, oh my God, it's like the ghost of wife past. So, but anyway, we had a farm. We had, you know, growing up, we still have one, but it's leased out now. I got from my grandparents passed. And I had a horse. And if anybody's had horses, you'll know, you know, if you don't breed the horses, a lot of times you buy them, the breeder will name them. And a lot of people keep the breeder name. So I had a horse named Cocaine. And she was fast. That was what was told with me. She was fast. Of course, at that age, I had no idea what that meant. I went to private school, and they interview you at private schools, you know, when you're like in kindergarten. And of course, you know, you're in kindergarten, so they're talking to you about, did you do this weekend? You know, what'd you do this summer? Do you have any pets? Things like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I have cocaine. They were like, So naturally, that brought another interview with my parents there. They were like, no, this is her horse. And they were kind of like, wait, what? They're like, well, you know, they'd explain the thing, like, you know, if you buy them for breeders, a lot of times they're often named. Sometimes you keep them, whatever. And anyway, so I will say this. So then my parents decided after that they wanted to start breeding horses and name them themselves. So this, I tell you what, this is the secret that comes out of this story. So my sister and I, when they were breeding horses at the barn, my mom was like, oh, you need to stay in the house. And so we did what any child would do, did not stay in the house. And we went, snuck into the bunkhouse, and we were present to the horse breeding situation. And I will tell you, I will never sneak to the bunkhouse again.
Oh.
That was disturbing. I was
like, my gosh.
Enough.
Oh, you have seen it.
Yes. Now it's a secret only my sister knows. I don't even think my parents know that. Of course, they probably will now, but... So to all those viewers out there, if your parents tell you not to go to the bunkhouse and watch a horse breeding, listen.
Please listen.
Please
that is something that you can only find on the dark web or like 4chan or something.
Oh my gosh. And like P. Diddy, please don't get horses. We're just going to lay it out there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I was waiting for bestiality to just jump into this.
I'm saying, I know. I was like, and 3, 2.
I guess for him it would have to be a small. It would have to be a small animal.
Yeah,
I know.
That's true.
Because one of the complaints named him as the size of a Tootsie Roll.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, that will never leave. That will never. No, he will never live that down.
Oh no. Bless his
heart. I was hoping we were going to actually see evidence of anatomy, but not. I guess not.
I know that they must have suppressed that earlier on. I imagine he's like, this is cause for defamation. This needs to stay under wraps. The wraps of a Tootsie Roll.
The poor juror who's like an elderly woman is like coming to witness this. Oh my God.
Can't you imagine like your grandma on the stand and she's just like,
Yeah. At least they're probably like
No.
stronger people because they're New Yorkers, you know? Like,
That
well, we got some
that's true.
Connecticut.
That now that is true. New Yorkers are strong. I love
Yes.
New Yorkers. I love New Yorkers. We have a lot of transplants here in Atlanta from New York, and a lot of my good friends growing up are New Yorkers, and they are from birth. I mean, you see these kids like 5 and 6 years old riding the subway, and you're like, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're like our like 15-year-old. We're like, don't leave the driveway.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you're talking to
Yeah.
someone in California. We are like scared of the air and everything.
That's true. You're like, don't breathe outside today. Stay inside for sure.
It's going to be a high of 70 degrees. Please stay indoors.
Definitely. Meanwhile,
Well,
in Georgia, we're like, the air is so thick, we have no idea what's happening on the ozone because we're just breathing humidity. We're not sure what it is.
and you're just getting eaten alive by massive mosquitoes.
Massive. Like, I mean, they come after me. They'll bite through my leggings. Like, I mean, there was a time when I tried to do the natural and I've tried every oil under the sun, but oh no, I'm 100% DEET now. I'm like, I'll have the deep wood DEET. That's what
Oh
I'll
my
use
gosh.
over my clothes.
Oh, can I tell you a funny
Yeah.
story?
Please.
When I started dating my husband, he's from Illinois, like backwoods Illinois. And he was
Okay.
like, how fun. Let's go on a little date. Let's take this canoe out down this backwoods river. And I was like, yay, ha, this Southern California girl.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Horse flies.
Oh, yes, yes. And have you seen
One-
one up close? Their eyes are crazy. I'm
Oh
like, is
my
that
God.
a spider? What is that thing?
So basically what I did was I took all of the bug spray and I had it just on constant flow until he could get me home. So I'm just like breathing in the bug spray. He doesn't get any. I let him stay behind me. So I was like, no, I'm just going to surround myself in the bug spray.
Yes.
We get back and we like pull up like for 100%. Oops, I hit my 100%. I have cancer, but I have no nail polish on my nails. They are stripped. And then we look at the canoe and it is like matte. There is no shine left. And I was like, honey, I don't really know who you think you're dating, but things have to change. And then we moved to California.
Oh my God. Well, I'll tell you this, girl. If you go into South Georgia, if you go below the gnat line, which we have here, and Atlanta is above the gnat line, and I think everybody has a different opinion of what the gnat line is. I personally think it's below Perry, just below Perry, which is like a little bit below Macon, kind of the middle of the state. But when I moved to South Georgia, they were like, oh, because I'm sitting here going like this, 24/7. They're like, oh, honey, you like blow up, like for those of you not seeing me, you kind of like blow with your like upper lip up. And I was like, oh, okay. And I blew the gnat like straight into my eyeball. So there is a way to do it, a mechanics around it. I am not good at it. I blew it into my eyeball, like straight into my nose, into my eyeball.
See,
So
I don't
gnats add a
ever want to
whole other
experience
layer.
that. No,
Oh, I know.
no, thank
I walked
you.
around in like a beehive suit, and I was like, I'm real sorry, but bugs tend to like me no matter what, so I'm prepared.
No, thank you. I will never,
No.
never go. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I mean, you said so many insightful things. And I know, Sean Combs, I know your jury and your lawyers are listening. And I hope you take this to heart.
I know. Bless. Only time will tell. This is surely an interesting one.
But where can people find you? I mean, if you are needing an attorney, this is the one you should have because, the ones, who's the old white guy who did the commercials? Larry H. Parker. No more.
It is a new era for sure. And, and we are based in Georgia, but we're nationwide, and it's Bridger Law Group. So you can actually go on Instagram, and it's, at Bridger, BRIDGER Law Group, or you can DM me personally, and it's Cameron _ Simone, CAMERON _ Simone, SIMONE, and we're happy to get to you. We do personal injury, and my law partner does immigration as well. So I solely do personal injury, and we take a whole different component. An attack when it comes to our personal injury cases, which I think really sets us apart. We have criminal backgrounds, and so when we get a case, you get a police report. Most personal injury lawyers we'll have the police report and send a demand out, and it's maybe 1 or 2 sentences on what happened, and there's no other evidence obtained, anything like that. We take it a step further. I investigate my cases. I treat it like a DA case file. I'm going into it. I'm taking pictures. I'm interviewing witnesses. I'm pulling cameras. I'm building a case as strong as I can so that my client has the best representation they know how. And we really are a family firm. I have several clients that had really bad things happen to them. One of my she was a child when the case initially started, but was about 18 or 19 when she finished, and unfortunately lost her mother. I go down and see her all the time. She had her actually on the anniversary of her mother's death. She was in college. It was the first year, and the teacher wouldn't give her like a continuance day to take her final exam. And I was like, oh, hell no. So I drove down there 4 hours, 4.5, and had a conversation with that teacher. And
wow.
Needless to say, she was allowed to retake it. And and that was probably 6 months after we settled the case. So, we're definitely a very different approach law firm. We have a great legal team, great staff, great employees. Everybody is in it 100%. And, we're nationwide. I'm so happy to represent you and talk to you about your case and see if there's something we can do for you. But any of those 2 places, you can definitely get in touch with me or the firm through me. And I'm Cameron Roberts, so you can ask for me if you go through the Instagram Bridger Law Group page.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And as somebody who comes from criminal too, and I'm now in civil and personal injury, it's a unique combination to have, and you want to vet your lawyer. You want that on your side.
You definitely do. And if I could say advice to anyone out there, ask your lawyer what strategy plan they have to attack. Ask them when you first take them on, what do they plan on doing with your case? How do they plan on investigating it more if there's not enough evidence, you think, or something like that? Because you have every right to ask them. The lawyer does get to govern typically the strategy of the case, but you can pick and choose your lawyer, and up to a certain point you can pretty much fire them at any time. But communicate with them, talk to them about what their plan is. If you don't communicate with your clients, then you're not finding out the real story. And so I just urge you guys, all your listeners out there, to ask your lawyer questions and, find out what their plan is, because you may have some very insightful knowledge about something that could be very, very, very helpful that they otherwise may not see in the evidence presented to them.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm so excited. Well, thank you for being on Intentionally Disturbing.
Thank you for having me.
I'll put all your links in the show notes so everybody can click away and contact you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. And I will wait to see what happens to the P. Diddy trial. It's going to be very interesting.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. So I'm sure it'll happen real soon, considering the rapidity of how it's occurring right now. So.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Intentionally Disturbing. I'll catch you next time. Intentionally Disturbing is a podcast from me, Dr. Leslie. It's distributed by iHeartMedia. Liam Billingham is the senior producer, and he also edits the show and puts up with my shit. Katie Cobbs does the social media, and she attempts to keep me in my lane, not always successful. The executive producers are Paul Anderson and Scott McCarthy for Workhouse Media, who have told me not to text them 24/7. But you know what? I'm still the boss. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next week for more.